Today my guest is Guido Jansen. Okay,
Hello.
didn't mess it up. Didn't mess it up. Great.
Yeah.
And Guido is, well, first of all, is like an amazing human being. I think that's the most important quality because it's actually meeting people and being able to connect and have like easy conversations, which I think doesn't get mentioned often enough. And that's something I started valuing a lot ever since I started doing this podcast because I see it quite rarely, to be honest.
You had to talk to a lot of people.
Yes, well, I do, and I get to compare. I get to
Yeah.
compare how people actually talk. But beyond being an accomplished human, and he's also a specialist and an evangelist and a community manager for Spryker. And community building is the topic which we're talking about today. This is why I wanted to talk to Guido again, especially because community is a big part of doing business. And very interesting thing which I find, which I hope to have in our discussion today, is that we will not be talking just about like creating a B2C kind of community or a fandom community, but it's also something which I've been thinking about lately is creating a community when you're having a B2B business, which like
Yeah.
a lot of things in B2B are kind of similar. Like in general, like in marketing and sales, they're kind of similar to B2C, but at the same time, you can't like exactly duplicate what you do for B2C into the B2B uh, area.
There's
And
a couple of differences. Yeah.
yeah,
Which we will talk about, I'm sure.
yeah, definitely. And again, as far as I understand, that's what you do for Spryker is actually uh, like managing the B2B community for the clients of the Spryker, which is, again, you will correct me if I'm wrong, but e-commerce
Mhm.
managing platform.
Correct. Yeah.
Creation, managing, hosting, all the stuff. Like I don't want to like compare it to Shopify one to one, but like
Mhm.
kind of. I think we get the plan. Also, Guido hosted his own podcast before,
Yeah.
over 200 episodes, as far as I know, and
Which is why I have this way too expensive microphone in front of me.
yeah, which is why you're probably more professional today here than I am, who doesn't have a microphone yet. But
I
yeah,
know the equipment is just faking the professionality. It's all about the quality of the people in there, and so far, I think great hosts. So let's get started. Yeah.
well, thank you. Yeah, well, Guido, why don't you introduce yourself as well and tell us a little bit more about you, what you do?
Well, you already did a great job at it, so thanks for that. Yeah, no, I work for Spryker indeed, which is an e-commerce platform. We aim at the enterprise market for that. So, like you just said, it's similar to Shopify, but if we would be in a pitch together with Shopify, we are definitely in the wrong pitch. That's a completely different product still. It's about selling products online, but we are very much focused on that upper market. A lot of B2B companies, some B2C companies, but that are companies that are having more what we call sophisticated challenges with selling stuff that can be really complicated when you're in B2B. You can imagine when you're offline selling, we have a couple of greenfield clients also, not people that have been doing companies that have been doing e-commerce for years, but also some companies that are starting doing this. And if you have in B2B, you have a lot of agreements with local account managers or salespeople. They make a deal for you. And if you have a worldwide business doing this, you can imagine there's a lot of different kinds of deals and subtleties. So it can depend um, on your locality, on the deal, on the kind of product that you're selling or that you're buying as a customer, or the time of the day, the time of the month, even what kind of price you need to show that to this person. So it can get complicated really fast, and that's what we specialized in. So that's what Spryker does differently than, for example, to a Shopify. which is, by the way, it's a great product. There's a lot of e-commerce software out there. Not to downplay any of them, but it's just a different kind of product and market that we're in. Yeah, and so you asked me to introduce me. So my official title is Global Business and Technology Evangelist at Spryker, which means that I go out a lot into the world, doing podcasts with interesting people, doing a lot of trade shows, events, going out and speak about Spryker. So that's part of it. And the other part is also indeed managing the community team that we have. Done a couple of things with that before I joined Spryker, and now I'm lucky at Spryker to be able to do this full time instead of as just a hobby, because that's how it started for me, the community management thing. Been doing that for Spryker now for 1.5 years. I report directly to our CCO, so our Chief Customer Officer. And yeah, my background's in applied cognitive psychology. So I'm a psychologist, and but I always worked in e-commerce. For many people, that feels a little bit like a strange connection. But what I had been doing before I joined Spryker is basically trying to optimize the journeys that people do in e-commerce websites. So usability, is it user friendly? Doing interviews with people, asking them, hey, what do you think of this website? And not only what you think of this website, but maybe even more importantly, what they do they actually do on that website? Are they going through certain steps that you would like them to go through? Are they, of course, eventually buying the stuff, but also are they understanding what you're even offering? Are they understanding your brand image? What are they concerned about? Are there the delivery terms? When do they receive the products? Are they understanding what's happening? So researching that, and then also the second part of that research will be running experiments. So validating if those changes actually make a difference for that customer. So a lot of A/B testing done, and built some teams around that at some international companies before joining Spryker. And like I said, community building started for me as a hobby. So I think since 2005-ish, I guess, I've been doing some community building, which started out with for the old people in the room, Mambo content management system, which then turned into Joomla, and spent some time since 2008 with Magento, and now ended at Spryker. And yeah, family wise, I live in Amsterdam with my girlfriend and my two boys. So let's keep it at that for the personal introduction, and then see where we go.
Sure. I want to go back a bit to Shopify comparison.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to stay as far as possible from Shopify. Probably because I came into contact with it, then the whole hustle culture about like, oh, do like Amazon drop shipping, do like a Shopify store, like, and I never really took it seriously, and I just wanted to like not having anything to do with it, to be honest, and that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of like, I don't know how to say. I don't want to say like I'm not a fan of e-commerce. I get that like it's a stupid sentence to say, but like I'm very weary about like certain e-commerce platforms and proliferation of it in the last few years, 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
But
Why is that?
I don't know. It just seems like okay. I'm not talking about if you're like a brand and you're selling something on your website. It's fine, right? That's not what I have the problem with. It's more that I feel that those huge, big marketplaces, right? There's too many of them, and they sell a lot of junk, and a lot of stuff are just like being resold from like China or like the countries which manufacture stuff, right? And in general, I think there's too much content on the internet, in like, right? And that's why I try to, for my own like I don't know mental safety and health, to try to like limit the amount of stuff I get into contact with. I do realize that from the point of businesses, right? Obviously, there's like time and place for all of this to exist, right? I have no like queries about it, right? But then you have like people trying to like make quick money by opening like a Shopify store by selling like fidget spinners or like cheap clocks or like something like this. And like I get that it exists. I just don't want to come into contact with it myself. So I would never buy
Yeah.
anything from a Shopify store myself.
Hmm.
I go to like Amazon.
But maybe you don't know if it's a Shopify store. Maybe they've hidden it really well.
Yes. Well, in this case, kudos to them,
Yeah.
right? But if I would feel that it's like something like Shopify, I wouldn't actually go there, right? So I would just go to Amazon or like, well, like my like
Now you made me curious. How is Amazon better than Shopify? Because
uh,
Amazon is a whole ecosystem, is a company that actually selling the stuff, and they make their own products, which might be of questionable quality. Shopify only is as a well, basically the software company, just only providing the software that allows people to sell that, basically.
uh yeah, well, it's nothing concrete. It's it's my general like feelings. It's like okay, so Amazon I feel is like a little bit more respectable. Like I'm not trying to say that like
Have you heard about how they do with wages of people in their
yeah,
warehouses?
yeah, I know, but like I'm talking like from the like customer side, right? So like
Yeah.
because like they're not paying me wages, right? So that's not what I'm bothered by. I'm bothered
Mhm.
like if they can deliver me the product, right? And there's certain like level of like security and protection which Amazon offers, especially with the Prime subscriptions, which many like Shopify stores
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, I get that point because I mean Amazon is a central company that has control over that, right? Shopify only provides the software for any company to set up their own shop, and the logistics of that's up to that company itself. So there inherently is more variability in that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, but the problem here is not that like I'm not like angry at the Shopify, but like I realize that the people who do it on Shopify do not provide the same value, like not the same value, the same like security as like Amazon would, right? And obviously they can because Amazon is like exponentially larger than probably any company which hosts their shop on Shopify, right? Company or an individual, because again, I see Shopify as more of a B2C platform. Uh, all of this was my long preamble to me asking if you can give a few examples. Or how do clients look like on Spryker? I'm not gonna like ask you to tell me who are the actual clients. I probably this is not something you can say, but like, what sort of clients are they? Like, could you like explain
Mhm.
like company sizes, right? Who might be actually looking to open a shop on Spryker using the Spryker platform? Right? Is there any particular types of businesses, or it's like pretty much general? It can be like as much as fashion or like a bakery. Like,
It can be a bakery for sure, but I guess it needs to be a really big bakery. Like I said, so with Spryker, it's very much enterprise. So it's usually not well. It is not the mom and pop stores that you might think of in your local store centers that you might visit. There are usually, so like I said, it's both B2B and B2C. I think we have a bit more B2B customers that are worldwide companies, and they can sell. They can sell commodity goods like fashion, but can also be basically every electronic component in your iPhone or Android phone, whatever brand you use, but electronic components and have literally hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions different products in their catalog that you can buy and do it in an automated fashion. Not only have visitors going to those stores, but have an e-commerce store. But they actually have products that's connect. Like you can have a coffee machine, or industrial machine, or something in a hospital. Um, that the where the equipment where the equipment themselves detect, hey, I need to I don't know, refill on again, coffee cups, or I need to refill on oil, or I need some maintenance, and I need some products for that, and the product itself reorders those products from stores. So that's the level that we're talking about. And yeah, we have different clients in a couple of different industries. And I can share some of those names. That's, I mean, they're on our website, so it's not a secret. It is that with a lot of those B2B stores that you cannot really visit their store online because they're not B2C. So you need either a login. So either the whole store is hidden from view, or it's not even listed on their website and only shared with their partners or their B2B, their business customers. But if you go to our website, we have Rico selling printer supplies. We have Aldi Süd, which is a big supermarket chain in Germany and in multiple countries. We have Toyota. We have Siemens Healthcare. Sourceability is one of those companies with all the electronic components. We have Mercado Maico, which is a Mexican CPG seller, and they introduced B2B commerce to micro supermarkets and help small supermarkets in Mexico sell online. We have ZF, which is an automotive manufacturer. We have Schneider Electric, which is a digital leader in automation and energy management. So there's a whole variety of companies that you may have never heard of because as a customer you will never see them, but that have often a great impact in the world and are often global leaders in whatever they do and sell, and again, very complex products often that luckily I don't have to dive in, but we have a lot of specialists at Spryker that make that happen. But as a community manager, I see of course their employees on our community platform, and that's where I see them and help them out.
Well, and you see again the types of the companies you even name, like they instill more trust than if it was like a random guy trying to sell me supplements on his Shopify store.
Yeah, maybe
that's also like a big thing, which I'm like, why Shopify? It's like
yeah.
not the platform itself,
No.
but the
Yeah.
use of the platform by the people is like instills less trust in me than like, again, obviously I probably wouldn't be like the client to buy from Toyota, but it's a different level of like trust for the people who buy from Toyota because they know Toyota already. Or for me buying from Amazon, I know Amazon already.
Yeah.
While with Shopify, I'm actually not sure what I'm buying because I can create a Shopify store and like create a lot of scam products on it, like today, and sell it. And
yeah.
yeah,
I do think that Shopify have some stuff in place, checks to prevent that. They will check if you're a legitimate business, and if they get a lot of complaints, I'm pretty sure they will do something about that. I don't know. I'm not Shopify, but in that sense, I think Shopify will be way more trustworthy than other platforms that people can just install themselves even without checks. I mean, something like a WooCommerce doesn't even have that check. I mean, WooCommerce, you can host that yourself. But again, that's not necessarily or not even the fault of the platform themselves. They're just offering the software, right? So, but it's interesting that you say it. So it is for a lot of customers very important that they have trust in a brand before buying something, right? For a lot of people, that's a key component when going online, and I've seen that in a lot of user research as well. That when people go onto a website, if they don't know the brand, it's one of the first things they're looking for. You might be as a seller, you might think, okay, I need to show them all the great products that I have. While that customer might think, who the hell are you? Can I trust you? And what are the signals that you can give me to trust you?
can I share a story which I have here in Turkey?
Go ahead.
Right. So I've mentioned that I would buy from Amazon, right? Before. In Turkey, I wouldn't buy from Amazon. The reason for this is not even the trust in the company, but lack of trust in the people working here in Turkey, that they simply wouldn't be able to deliver the product to me. Now,
Yeah.
as a rational person, I'm fully aware that if they don't deliver the product, I can complain and they will either bring me the money back or find a way to deliver it back. But
you don't want the hassle of complaining and
well, that's the first thing. I don't want the hassle.
yeah.
But I also have this situation with the apartment where I live, where I constantly get delivered other people's orders.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody even checks. They just leave them by my door and leave, right? And this is also one thing. So, okay, so Amazon like can be trustworthy, but when I used to live in England, for example, the infrastructure, the logistics of the delivery were quite clear to me as well, right?
Yeah.
Where it would be delivered, there were like those Amazon boxes. I'm not sure how they're like called correctly, but so like there was no problem. I knew that I would get my product like anyway. It didn't matter who I ordered it from, be it like from an Amazon warehouse or it being like resold from like
Mm-hmm.
a bookstore. As a avid reader, I used to buy like a lot of like 99-cent books resold from like local bookstores, which was a good deal, I think. Here in Turkey, I don't have this trust. So in my 6 months living here, I haven't done a single e-commerce
Yeah.
um,
Transaction.
transaction. Yes.
Yeah.
So like,
Interesting. Yeah. But still for my, I don't see that a huge difference between still, maybe that's my experience in the Netherlands. But a huge difference between Amazon and Shopify stores. Because I mean, Amazon, I think they have way more control over what's being sold and how, because it's on Amazon.com, right? And with Shopify, there's a bit more as a customer, as a Shopify customer. So the merchant selling stuff, you have way more control on how it looks like, and you have your own URL and that kind of stuff, and you need to do your own logistics, so it's more complicated. But also, I mean, Amazon is also a marketplace, right? So there are a lot of sellers on there still. That you don't know if you can trust them, and you hope you can trust them. And maybe that's a smart thing they're doing. They're making you think you can trust them because they're on Amazon, and then hopefully the trust that Amazon has with you rubs off on them. But is that are they right to do so, or
well, whether they're right or not,
it works?
but it's working, at least in my case. So marketing side of things, they have it covered. Um, and now I think like let's transition a little bit to again the community side of things, the one which we're talking today. So you mentioned like a number of big companies, whether like regional in the countries or like worldwide companies. Why is it so important to build a community with those companies? And also, in our previous discussions, you mentioned this quote, which I really liked.
Mhm.
And I also want you to go like a little bit deeper into it. And you said that with your with the clients of Spryker, you are an evangelist for Spryker. But with Spryker, you are the evangelist for the
Yeah.
client, right? Which I think is like a beautiful philosophy, if I can call it like that. And I think it's like an amazing way to create a bridge between your clients and well the company itself. But I want
Yeah.
to hear you go more into it and like again, why are
Sure.
you building a community with those
Yeah.
B2B clients? Does Toyota even need to be in the same community with like a
Any of
market?
the others, yeah.
Yeah, any of the others, but like, and also talk a bit more about your philosophy about building it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a bridge function that I have as an evangelist. Basically, you represent Spryker on stage, or wherever I am, I represent Spryker. I mean, I literally have the shirt on, right? I mean, I'm basically walking brand for Spryker, but definitely also the other way around. Me being that the one in the community, my community team, we get all the input from the community, the good, the bad, the ugly. We all see it, and then it's up to us not just to keep them happy in the moment, but also okay, let's relay this to the correct team within the company to make sure this gets fixed in the long term, right? And that can be the product team, that can be the engineering team, our architecture team. It can be the customer support team. It can be the academy team. It completely depends on what people are talking about. So we have a lot of connections there, but yeah, that's how we represent then the community within Spryker. And to be clear, we're definitely not the only team doing this. We have a dedicated customer success team. We have a dedicated partner success team. So of course they also have some kind of a bridge function there as well. But for the community team, it's more the overall function that we're talking about. Yeah, and when built, so this is typically a B2B by definition a B2B community. Indeed, I don't serve regular customers. We don't have those in our community. These are all people working for either our clients or our partners. And when I say for partners, so how this works, Spryker, we build the software, and then what happens most often is that our partners implement that software for those for their customers, their B2B or B2C clients. And that can be across the world. We have a large partner network across the world of partners implementing that. And I think the interesting, maybe when you think about the community, you think about your I don't know, maybe your local community of people that go to the same school or the same club. Community of, I don't know, we have a community of parents. We have a WhatsApp group of all the parents in for our kids. You might think of a community of people that are a fan of a big band or something. But yeah, companies have communities as well, and particularly in B2B communities. Well, let's start with why they're a bit more challenging, I think. With B2B, if you have a B2C community, and Amazon has a big B2C community, right? They sell to consumers, they sell to customers. But compared to B2C, I think B2B is interesting in that by definition, there are a lot less companies than consumers. So, and it depends a bit on the product, but you will have less community members than when you're selling to consumers. You will have, I think less engagements. That's again, I'm just naming some general things that might be different from B2B community to B2B community. But I think in general, limited engagement, like companies still often in this remote working environment, we still often work from 9 to 5. So you'll have limited engagement in the evening or in the weekend. It might completely die down and then pick up again on Monday. Because it's B2B, and maybe it's not specifically B2B, but in our case, because we're in the enterprise level companies, there's high expectations on what you can get in a community or how you interact with customers. There might be concerns for anonymity. That might be similar. That might be happening in B2C as well. But with B2B, you work for a company. So if I go onto a forum asking questions about how I use your product, how does that reflect back on me as a employee of that company? So there might be concerns there, and there might be even an approval process going on. So that makes B2B, I think, a fun challenge, but things to consider if you're already doing community management for B2C. Those are some extra challenges that you need to work with. But then, even with those extra challenges, I think there's a lot of benefits in doing that and creating this whole partner network. And I think the overarching theme for this, we also spoke about that. We had a developer hackathon last weekend in Hamburg. We also spoke about that with the partner team. The overall thing why you want to do is, I think, is for me is the term co-opetition. So it's cooperation and competition at the same time. So how to build co-opetition is that you are working together on something for which it doesn't make sense to compete on. And basically that's what software building is, but what Spryker and Shopify and Shopware and Magento, what all those brands are doing, you build something that all those individual companies aren't going to build. You're not going to build an e-commerce platform yourself as all those companies that are using that. Another form of competition for consumers that's quite interesting is maybe USB-C. And in Europe, it's also enforced, but all companies working together saying, hey, it's madness out there. Let's not all create our own charger. I mean, a lot of time, most of you might remember the hassle with all these different USB connectors. Still some devices that will have, but with USB-C, it's still not perfect, but it's at least the connector is the same. But there's an improvement there. So you as companies that are competing, you work together to set some standards, and once those standards are set, you can go compete again. That's what we're also doing, and that's why it's useful to create a B2B community as well to set those standards. You can do that with competitors, but in our case, like I said, we have a whole partner network. And those partners can work together if they see similar problems arise with their customers, or challenges that they have in, I don't know, in changing economy, or the product that they want to sell, the type of products, and the technology they need for that. They can work together on that, and that might be a way more efficient way of moving forward than for each of those different partner companies to do that individually. So yeah, like I said, we just had a hackathon last weekend with developers from I think there were like 5-6 different partner companies that are normally competing with each other, that work together on solving similar problems, and then putting it on GitHub for everyone to use or to build upon, and to move forward. So I think that's competition is I think the driving term there, where why B2B communities make a lot of sense to me, at least. And there's lots of examples there, not just from e-commerce, but there are a lot of companies, a lot of industries where this happens. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned competition as part of it, right? And I don't believe in competition in like the 21st century. I think again the market is so saturated, and we are 8 billion and growing amount of people. There's literally like clients for everybody. And the way, like, again, if we're talking about like actual consumers buying stuff, we buy primarily through emotion and through like finding something we relate to, right? So as long as a company is creating something for something of value for the consumer, you will find your consumer, provided you do the marketing right? Provided you do the business essentials right, you will find your.
Well, according to you, a lot of Shopify customers, shops don't do that. So there's a market to be gained there.
They still find their consumers. Like,
Yeah.
like again, we've spoken about it like before. Everybody is different. My preferences with my e-commerce behavior are a bit different than others people's, right? And like I may be more picky at some point, I can be less picky at other points, right? Because again, it's not like black or white, right? If I'm looking for like some very specific product, I might even buy from Shopify, but it should be like something specific which I can find in a more trusted source. For example.
Oh, there we go. You might even buy something from a Shopify shop.
Well, yeah, obviously, obviously, like I, as a consumer, I can do like anything. I just need to be put in the correct, situation for me to act in this way accordingly, right? But I don't believe in competition. I like, and when I say this, I don't mean that like I reject the notion of competition existing. But again, as I say, I feel there is a customer for everybody, especially in my business, which is a service business, and I have like a lot of colleagues, hopefully some of them are friends, who also do marketing, right? And in one way, we're all competitors, but on the other way, we all have our like limit of how many clients we can serve at any given point in time.
Yeah.
Right? And there will always be, as you mentioned, more customers than there are companies, right? So are we competing? We are competing in a certain way, but from the other perspective, like, the rising tide raises all ships, right? So like we
Yeah,
exist
that
in the same space, but we don't necessarily like enemies of each other.
no, exactly. Yeah, and that's also how. So, like I said, in the roughly 15 years before I joined Spryker with Magento, we organized a lot of events. I organized a lot of events called Magento events in the Netherlands, conferences around Magento, and to get those partners on board, we also said always said basically what we're trying to do here. With those events, and why you should contribute to those events. Those events are about making a bigger pie. Like I said, the rising tides lifts all boats. If we can make that happen, and then we all benefit. Even if you end up with a smaller piece of the pie, percentage-wise, it might be twice as big as you have now if we manage to grow the whole pie. So that's I think why it's interesting to have these B2B communities and why they really work. You can together you have a shared interest in the success of the industry as a whole, and that's why what you're trying to do. But yeah, there will always be limited resources in terms of developers or the amount of money that potential client companies can spend. So in that sense, there's always competition in those areas and that you need to deal with. There's always going to be a limitation in resource in some way or form.
No, yeah, obviously. But like again, as I say, like if suddenly right now I will have 20 potential clients come to me and I can't serve all of them, right? So it's like it's no good that 20 clients come to me and I can't serve them, right? And it's not only my problem. Obviously, like if I was a big marketing firm, like I know BBDO, for example, or Ogilvy, right? Then potentially, sure, like good, but they're also like in a bit of a different niche, the way they do marketing compared to like my relatively small agency. This is
Yeah.
completely different businesses. But
Yeah, and that's what you also see in those B2B companies that they it's not really the companies, and if you have that mindset of making the pie bigger, then it also makes sense that we indeed, like you said, oh, okay, I have these 20 clients coming up, I cannot serve them all, but you already know, and that's where the community comes into play. You already know other people in the industry because they are a community. Whether that's intentional, that community, whether that's structured or completely unstructured, but there is a community out there, and it helps you then to still maybe able to serve those clients, make them happy, saying, okay, 10 of you should go to this company. I know them. I trust them. I've been working for them or alongside them in the same industry for all these years. I know what they do, and actually, I'm pretty confident because you are a company that is in a certain industry. Maybe okay, you're all 10. You're fashion clients. I never worked with fashion clients. Please go to this company, and you will be much happier than you will be with me. So, and that specialization within that community that really helps. But I think it's exemplify. No, that's, it's exaggerated. That's the right word. It's exaggerated when you put some intention behind the B2B company community and have them introduce to each other, have them talk to each other. If they don't, it often feels like okay, this is that other big company and other big company that are a competition of mine. But like you said, there might be enough market for all of you to exist, and it might make more sense to divide the market somewhat between the kind of customers that you do, maybe, or the specializations that you have. And if you and the next level might even be that you say, okay, we don't even completely divide those products or clients, but work together on them. Saying, hey, you do the I don't know, you do the hosting part, you do the front end part, the other company does the back end part, you do the integration part, and work together on delivering the best experience for that customer.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, one thing I also want to add is, well, obviously in the service business, I work directly. I'm not selling like a product which makes me like hands-off approach. Like you've taken the product, like, right? No, I work directly with the client, right? And I have to interact with the client quite a lot, and the client has to interact with me quite a lot. And we need to be able to communicate properly, and we need to be able to click together. Like we need to be able to understand each other in a way which makes our communication like effective. And because the communication is effective, the delivery of the service is effective, right? And again, if we're going back to that, the people are all different. You're not on a human level. In my case, for example, you're not gonna click with every single human being in the world, right? And this is also another aspect why, uh, at least in the service business, more than product one, but you have to find, and that's when I say no to certain clients, because I realize that even though right now he doesn't see the problem, I see the problem of the communication, and we're just not fit for work together. But it doesn't mean like with like the next marketing agency, he can be fit to work with them, right? And that's where like what you're saying is like having those partnerships, like even if you're having like
Yeah.
strategic partnerships or like some sort
Yeah, I
of,
think it's a sign of a really strong community when you don't have when you don't ever have to say no. When you say I'm not the fit for you, but I know who is. So they can still go. Everyone can come to you in the industry, in the community, and ask you, hey, I want to work with you, and you have you even say, okay, great, I think we're a match, or say, well, actually, this other person. And I think that's it would be a great sign of a healthy community if that happens.
now I've also been thinking of creating a B2B community out of my clients, right? But the way I thought about it, like, what will this community be about? And maybe you can like validate or like tell me how my idea is wrong. But I thought of doing something along the lines that by being the part of the community, everybody signs into giving like cross marketing opportunities to towards each other. So like again, if those are not directly competing companies, obviously like
Yeah.
if there are two like car manufacturers, it will be really weird if like Volvo starts like promoting like Audi, right? So obviously this.
Yeah.
But if it's like say I don't know which companies like work good with each other. But say you have like a laundry business and a professional tailor, right?
Mhm.
They can like cross promote each other's services. And like I thought of
Yeah.
like creating some sort of like opportunities
Yeah.
like for the clients to get even more additional benefits of like, well, first of all, being my client because I provide those
Yeah.
cross marketing materials, but also uh, by being some part of the community. But beyond this, I'm not really sure what would the engagement of this community
Yeah.
be. Like
I
these,
think it's what you need to as a baseline for a community. What you need is some common ground, some shared interest in that community. What would make them want to talk to each other? And for us, that's hey, we're all using the same product, and we all have a shared interest in making that product better. Because then, if we together we create a better product, or better services around that product, and then we all benefit. And I think that's a sense that you need to have. That's one. And the second one is you need to have um, a community or a group of people that are active. I mean, I think the guideline or the default for communities that say when you have roughly 100 people, 90 of them will only look at what you do. They might visit you, but they will never interact. They will see your website, or they will look at your community, but they will, or if you have a forum, they will look at it. They will never interact. They might not even create an account. Then you'll have 9% of people. Sorry, 9 people of those 100 that will like interact with the content that you have. So maybe like a post or comment on a discussion, and then only one person out of that 100 will be someone that actually actively posts something on your community. Now, again, this is a rough guideline. It very much depends on your community and how active they are or how engaged they are. But that just gives you a sense of, yeah, you need a certain amount of people to make this work, to make a community work. So if you only have 3 people that are active, it's hard to make that work. If you think, okay, I have a couple of 100 people, and a certain percentage of them I can keep active and get them to return to this community and be active and visit my events or visit my podcast or visit my webinars. Then you might have something. I mean, you don't need thousands, but you need a group of certain engaged members to make a community work. And I'm not saying that's easy. But that's yeah. Otherwise, it might be better to join a bigger community. I mean, if you're a marketing agency, there's a lot of marketing communities out there. Then it might make more sense saying, hey, I'm active on this larger community. I don't know, Reddit. Stack Overflow, whatever your the name of the game in your business is. Go to Discord. Maybe there's people there, and create a section of it there. We also see that in our community where people develop an add-on for Spryker or a pretty large add-on that people start using, and then they start a sub-community on our community where they can benefit of all the activity already going on there, and then have a subsection in there where they can post some updates and get some interaction with their members. But it's going to be really hard for them if you don't have the traction yet to start your own community around that.
Well, it's also like I feel a lot of people are very well, we might be talking about a bit different communities, right? Because, well, at least
Sure.
from
Yeah.
your standpoint, but like the way I see communities, right? I see them in very B2C kind of thing. So like how do you bring together like people, not businesses primarily, right? That's just kind of my well, that's my experience, so that's my point of view, right? And a lot of the communities I see, they're very protective about their community, and they wouldn't really enjoy having you try to create a community within their community, right? Because again, they're very
But I mean that depends if your goals allow. I mean, if you're trying to steal their community, no, sure, of course. Then it would be weird for competitors there that are direct competitors, clearly a different product, and you start trying and if companies or consumers or whoever the client is would only use one of two, then it doesn't make sense. But if it's more shared, and there's a lot of shared communities, there where you don't have that competition, but they enjoy different. I mean, the larger a community grows, it will have different groups, right? And you can start a different subsection in there, like we had, like we have with Spryker. There are also a couple of different meetup groups within the community because of their locality. There's a meetup group for Berlin, for München. That makes sense. So that then you have a sub community that's still they are still part of the larger community, and they have the same interests, the same goals, but they are a subsection of that community. So if you can make that happen with whatever it is anyone is doing, you can benefit from it. You can start a sector within that community, and I think a lot of communities would benefit from that and would be happy to have you. But yeah, it's not trying to infringe on the territory of a direct competitor. Yeah, they're usually not happy with that.
yeah. Well, I think it's like so I've made a post recently where I've like posted a document about like incentivizing communities, right? And I have a couple of examples there over. And like one of the examples, this has more to do with like when I talk about like Web3 marketing and how like communities and people interact in like a decentralized space. But like one thing which I think is very applicable to Web3, but to communities in general, it's something which you say like, what is the core? Why is the community staying together? Which I call like the cause. What is the cause behind this community? Is like, you know, the fandoms, be it like football, like sport fandoms, right? You're talking about, or are you talking about like Star Wars fandoms or like Marvel movies fandoms, right? And the idea is like Disney or like Arsenal or Chelsea, they have no ownership of the actual like community which they build. They don't ask for money if you start your own YouTube channel about Arsenal, right? Or if you start a forum, a fun forum or a fun page. But people who already bought into it can just like start a page, start posting stuff, and like build up an audience just sharing their passion for whatever it is they're like loving, right?
Yeah.
In this sense, you're effectively doing what you just explained. You just kind of enter into like the big pool of people, like you mentioned that being a group and creating a sub community. Here we don't have like a singular group, but you have a singular interest, and you just like, let's, hey, this is a place where we talk about this interest, and then within this interest you can well have your own like kind of niche, talk about like something specific from within or not, or talk about the general and find your own like people, because again it's all about like, if we're talking about like communities of people, it's like who do you click with most. So like, you know, what are the community guidelines? Does this work for me, or do I want to go into the community which is more like 4chan, which I can like post whatever, right? Or like I want to be in a more structured community which with more guidelines, like, you know, Reddit, or even more so if we go to other like social media networks, right? And those are like all the ways to build a community. But if you are building a community from scratch, as you said, and especially if you're doing this in B2C, where you have to have a lot of people and you have to have this clique of people be constantly engaged, I think it's hard because you need like a lot of traffic. You need to have a lot of well, especially I'm trying to build this podcast, right? And I want to have like constant viewers who would engage in the comment section, right? I have some, but like obviously like to grow it, I want to have like more, right? But in order to this, I need to have traffic. I need to have create content, constant content, right? I need to provide constant value. It's like a bit of like getting your own fans, I guess. Like I'm not trying to diminish them anyway. I'm just meaning like people who will tune in because they, well, it's not just the information of the podcast. Like again, like it's there are many podcasts which deliver a lot of value and a lot of information, but it's also like, do they like my guests? Do they like me? Do they like the quality of sound recording? Something which I'm working passionately on improving. We'll see how it improves. But it's like a lot of things which go into building a community if you're trying to build it from scratch. And something I realized, I think the simplest way, but the most expensive way, is just to pay for a lot of traffic and get your like initial traction from people who will find you, who just won't find you otherwise, just because the initial reach isn't enough. But they will find and become the score because they found you through paid promotion. So it's not organic, but it doesn't mean that they won't become fans or like, you know, appreciators of the content in the future. So community building is hard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have nothing against paid promotion, but I mean that's for me that always feels like a bit of it is something where you can grab attention with fast, but it never feels like something that you should be able to or should sustain for a long time, right? You can get an initial burst of traffic, but if they don't hang around, then that's not a sustainable way. You cannot keep paying for, and that's not just for a podcast. That's also for if people if you keep buying traffic for people to see your traffic and to see your products that you're selling on an e-commerce website, well, actually no one has interest in it if you have a really low conversion rate. So that's a tricky balance there. But yeah, with podcast, I mean, it also took me like 2 years before I felt like, oh, this really has some traction, and then I got actually it's franchised a bit. So we have started out myself with a Dutch and an English version, but now as a German version as well and a Spanish version as well, which is really neat. Which, to be clear, have different hosts. I don't speak well enough German and Spanish to do that, but it takes a lot of time and effort. And for me, I never really cared so much about growing the podcast. For me, the podcast that I do was all about me learning from our guests and having a great time with that. I wasn't selling anything at that moment anyway. I'm still not selling anything. So one, that helps if people don't necessarily want to be be sold to, but that for me the driver to keep doing this was just the interest in the guests that I had and talking to them. So even if that was the end, if it was just ending there and no one would listen to it, it would still have value for me doing this. And having listeners and having people recognize that at conferences and coming up to you, for me that was just like the bonus.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, that was I guess that's my
basically the podcast was just a cheap way for me to get in front of a lot of people. And when you organize a podcast, I mean, we have an explosion in podcasts, so that might change a bit. But if you go to someone and say, hey, I have this nice blog and I would love to get an article from you on that blog, then I'm already thinking, if you would ask this from me, I would already think like, okay, that sounds like a lot of work that might take me, I don't know, 2-3 days to write even. While on the other hand, if you say, hey, would you like to do a podcast with me, then I say, okay, yeah, that's relatively easy. I can talk about what I do for 45 minutes to an hour. There's much less time investment for a guest. And they some people like to hear themselves talk. So that also helps. So
well, yes, no, I agree with you. Like, to me, the reason why I enjoy doing it, as you mentioned, is like the same. I enjoy like connecting with people and talking to them and like learning a lot of things, and I kind of like the whole process. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I wanted to be like better looking, but I know if like I just wanted like a perfect podcast on the first go, I would never have started it. I would have spent like 2 years like learning Adobe After Effects skills and like audio mixing.
yeah,
And like,
it's tempting. Yes.
yeah, so I just rather just start and improve along as I go.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, sometimes I go to potential guests and I ask them, "Hey, I really enjoyed your content. I really like what you're doing, right? That's my podcast. I really want to talk to you about this particular topic." And they would be like, what are your analytics? How many views do you get? Right? And this like immediately makes me kind of uneasy, because now it's not about connecting and sharing information and knowledge and value and like, just like learning from people. And it's becomes this like transactional uh, attitude. And it's also, I guess it's like psychological thing, but it's as if they devalue me. Like, it's like recently, like I read a book, Martin Eden. The guy wants to be an author throughout his life, and he's a poor guy, right? Oh, like it's 200-year-old book or something. So he's like from the lower classes of society. Nobody respects him, and he just keeps grinding. He keeps writing books, and then suddenly he gets his break. He gets published, and everybody starts respecting him as he's like the greatest author ever. Like, you know, and he keeps on repeating, but I've written those books which you love and enjoy like years ago, and you didn't respect me then. Why do you suddenly respect me now? Right? And I kind of get it, because it's the same here. Like, I'm not gonna change from my, like, you know, the amount of followers and subscribers and listeners are not gonna change my personality and the value and the questions I ask, right? And the this experience which we're having right now, because we're recording on Zoom. Subscribers, people are irrelevant. It's effectively a discussion between us at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And when people say this, it's like it suddenly becomes not about this communication which we are having. It suddenly becomes about like, okay, how much exposure and reach my podcast can be for you, right? And becomes this very like materialistic thing, and it suddenly becomes like very dirty to me, and I really don't like when it just becomes about this. And like, I would get it if I would be talking to like, try to talk to like presidents or like celebrities or like some very top people who are like incredibly busy. But for the most part, I'm not like DMing like Hollywood celebrities to like come to.
You're not? Maybe you should.
Maybe I should.
Just give it a try. Just give it a try. See what happens.
Definitely I will. But I hope you can like understand like what I'm trying to explain here, like this point where yes, it's a podcast, I'm doing this for myself, but in order for me to keep getting guests, I still needed to show some traction and to grow, because otherwise, at some point, this like effect of social proof would start working against me. You know?
Yeah. Plus, with podcasting, don't know if you've dived into this, but I mean, I come from a conversion rate optimization and analytic background, but in my experience, the podcast statistics that's very hard. It's actually very hard to answer the question: how many listeners do you have, and how many subscribers do you have? Because many of those platforms don't actually share those numbers. Like with Apple Podcasts, you have no idea. So it's actually quite kind of tricky to do that. So. But yeah, I think it's as long as you, as a host, find it interesting, the rest is all it's all a bonus.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I enjoy it. And I usually try to keep my podcasts like less than an hour. But for me, like, I do get enjoy and I get carried away. Like, for example, we are like over an hour already, and to be fair, like, I feel like we can go.
Speaking of which, I need to go to a meeting. So
no, but like no. But like, you know, again, I'd love to keep going, but maybe we can do it like another time. But for the sake of my listeners, who I have some listeners, hopefully. No.
Hello, people.
Let's respect their time, and I will respect your time. Thank you very much for coming to talk to me. Again, as I said, like, I really enjoy those like easy, valueful. Is there a word like there's no word like valueful.
It is a word now. You just invented the word. See, you're just already inventing words. This is a great podcast.
Awesome. But let me like packed, interesting, easy and engaging conversation. That's why I'm doing this for. Thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more about Spryker or get in touch with you?
Yeah, Spryker. That's Spryker.com, where you can find more about our product, and there's also a link to the community that we have if you're interested in that one. Personally, best way to contact me if you want to. My personal website is my first name with a dot between the I and the D, so gui.do. That's my personal website, or find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome, and all those links will be down below in the description. Well, thank you again. It was a pleasure having you here today.
Thanks for hosting. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.